Carlsen means that a a group of players will be in contention for the title. But I can tell you, can you remember a tournament where he won?
I think that this is impossible, yeah, kind of.
So
it could be a unique achievement here.
I mean, it
Magnus.
could. Well, I think certainly, for example, tennis.
Well, sometimes actually the best, King G2 play, this is a normal move. Sometimes the best strategy is G4, then suddenly I get access for the F3 square for my king, and that's why I don't think that you should rush it.
Definitely not rush it.
Yeah, Magnus also says, wait a second, okay. Bishop, of course, you can put it on C7 anywhere else, so this not will be the winning method, but this knight H4, rook D3, so white plays the move king H3. He's trying to hide his king,
but
the computer hates it. Magnus.
And we need.
Magnus is about to make a move. He has a clear plan. Yeah, he goes rook D3.
I know what he's going to do. He's going to play king G2, and then I think he wants to play A5.
Yeah, because there is this A5 B4 kind of break as well, and he's combining everything. Besides, slowly Zugzwang issues might also appear.
Exactly. And now you can't move the bishop because of knight H4 check. And you can't move the rook because of rook D2 check.
White can maybe hope B6, bishop C7, and then okay, we have a headache. No, A5 played, very systematic. Magnus wants to break with B4, get the rook behind. The bishop is overloaded then because that bishop needs to watch out, so cannot defend the pawn on B4 with bishop D6 due to knight H4 check. And then the rook might just pick it up, go back to B3, go back to D3, and the rook will always keep an eye on the B2 pawn. Questions. White plays king F2. White had to play king F2. He can only hope for some force sequence of moves. Yeah, he gets up. He wants to calm his nerves down. This is a typical method. Yeah, no matter you have 4 minutes, but if you feel like you can't bear the tension of sitting there at the board and waiting for your opponent to execute the breakthrough, get up, get some emotions, look at some other game just to see that someone else is also in trouble, shares yours. Yes, you always have to look for something that you can get some hope. Yes, something that can cheer you up in order to put the biggest. Actually, Isna Rauf counting on rook E3. Wait a second.
What's happened?
Well, breaking news.
Okay.
The rook can't escape. Because after Magnus can't go back with the rook to d1 because of rook e1. So actually now white might be able to force the trade of rooks.
Really?
And that is a whole different kind of question then.
But wait, can you... So if I go b4 here...
Yes, I take AB, for example. I'm not even sure if I touch, but okay, imagine I take AB.
Okay.
AB and then rook e3.
Okay, so my question here is, if I take and play b3,
you are fixing the weakness, but compare knowing that after b4 takes rook b3, I'm imagining that it will be lost. I might be tempted that, wait a second, there is a chance, because if ever you are trying to get against my b2 pawn, I will have bishop d6, bishop e3 kind of defense.
But then there's going to be some Zugzwang opportunities, I feel.
Maybe, but okay. Suddenly, let's see if Magnus had foreseen this or he's kind of upset that, wait a second, I got careless. I thought that I'm already finishing the game off. Because we kind of got the impression, we got fooled. It looked like rook d3, a5, b4 just wins the game.
I still feel as though it doesn't save the position, and also I can get a slightly improved. Yeah, I don't think that. So I think that ending is losing for white.
Wow. Yes. Really?
Yeah, because I'm gonna also at the right moment. So let's put that on the. Let's put b3 back on the board. You can just click.
Well, there is the question, however, that I can also play the move rook e3 here. Does this change anything or not?
Well, then I think what I would do is go rook d2 check, trade on e2, trade on a3.
Well, you can also trade it on e1 basically, yeah?
Or on e1.
So that my king is even further away. You trade on a3, I take.
Okay, some breaking news. Because we're not using the engine, but we've been told that instead of the move a5, which is the most...
is coming to h3, and probably just then a5, b4, and the systematic approach happens. Okay, but we have live action, so after king b2, b4, a b4 was played, so the first intuition, I will make everything in my power not to let that happen.
Oh, maybe.
Because if you get it, then the knight on d3 cuts my position in half. Then
Well, I tell you what, this is going to be one of the most instructive moments.
is from what I have been following, because I was a very big football fan. And
He does take.
c takes b4,
Yeah.
played by Ralph. I think Magnus will be very happy, because after c takes b3, this is exactly the rook b3 on the board immediately, instantly. This is what Magnus envisioned before this king f2, rook e3 kind of scare. It was very difficult for Mamedov to decide if it's losing or not. For Magnus, because he has nothing to lose, yeah, there is much less pressure on him. It would have been a much more easier decision.
Yeah, this is...
Yeah,
Okay.
Magnus doesn't do the favor. Poor Ralph, yeah, he was hoping for it, but yeah, rook takes f3 check. He knew that this is a dream. Such things can only happen in a dream. Rook takes f3, king e1, Magnus goes back to b3, total control. The knight is such a monster piece.
Yeah, king d1. This
trying
is
to run towards the weakness here, but not the knight, and the kingside pawn majority will just decide the game. Knight f3, of course the knight belongs there.
yeah.
We'll be seeing king g4, h5, h4, and then Magnus will decide king h3, and then g4, g3, or I think very likely we're going to see this total domination.
Yeah, you can actually just win the pawn on h2 as well, right? King g4, king h3, take on h2, run the g-pawn. Probably a few ways to win this. King c1. Now Magnus will play the move king g4, 100%. There's no other move here that makes sense. King g4. Well, maybe there are some other moves, but he's going to play it surely. Surely that's just the move that most top players play here. It's better than king h4 because rook e6 and, well...
Yeah, you just want to put it on a light square.
Yeah.
If your opponent has a dark square bishop, you just intuitively, automatically put it on a light square. And by the way, look at this. The whole domination is based on the light squares. Yeah, just very instructive. Just ignore the bishop only here, because these guys were restricting the bishop. And king g4. Oh, he even goes g4. Wow, that's a surprise. I haven't seen that coming. But okay, probably it's such a winning position, it does not matter at all. He signals that, okay, you know, I just gonna walk all the way to h3 and push h5, h4. And not only the pawn on h2, but also g3. If the bishop moves to d6, then the d4 pawn will be vulnerable as well. We might even not take it. I'm preferring actually to make progress on the king side with the h and g pawns and force the bishop to be sacrificed for the pawn, and then it's all over.
Yeah, and with 1 minute left on the clock, it doesn't matter if he had 1 minute, 1 hour, or 1 day.
Exactly.
Yeah, bishop d6. Yeah, he's trying to mix it up because now knight takes d4, there's rook e5 check, and something maybe...
Yeah, no, Magnus will not even look at that direction. He will just continue his walk.
Do you think so?
Yes, absolutely. Why
Okay.
not? There is no mating net
Yeah.
against the king. That would be the only reason to hesitate. But he can just walk with his king. When you have a winning structure and you have a winning method, you should not get distracted by anything. Yeah, why to change anything if you don't need to? It is in White's interest that maybe something changed and I might get some hope. Yeah, king h4 on the board. Just walks in. Another big question will be that will Magnus start with h5 or king h3? That's already a 50 kind of chance. I don't know. Both is natural. Yeah? There is the argument, let me place the king on h3 first, but also that since there is no mating net, then okay, I'm going to go king h4, h5, king h3, h4. Yeah, just step by step, like a slow train, but steadily, but it's reaching its destination.
Yeah. And he can see the victory inside. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Well, that means very simply that Magnus Carlsen, if he wins, and I'm very conscious of the commentator's curse because I've done it too many times, so I'm always going to say if. There's always a chance something goes wrong. He's big favorite, but if he wins, he gets to 8 out of 8. We'll have white in the final round to complete a legacy win for 9 out of 9. Now, Rook E8 was played by Ralph. This is just a Hail Mary. Doesn't work. Million reasons why it doesn't work. Knight takes d4 here actually looks pretty good to me because you can put that with Rook H8, you have Knight F5 and you keep stability everywhere.
But basically it was the only move. Yeah, if you sit passively, there are absolutely no chances. Now at least after King H3 there is Rook H8. So now we know that, for example, Magnus will definitely not play the move King H8 because this is white's only hope. You are advocating for grabbing the pawn on d4, also possible, but somehow I have the signal that Magnus is not intending to take on d4. If he has a very clear way of, okay, let me just push. If he goes h5, then King h3, h4 is total win. So after h5, white will have to play Rook h8 also.
Yeah, so h5, maybe h5, Rook h8. Yeah,
then Bishop e7 check is a threat.
Yeah, I really feel like he's going to just take this pawn now.
Yeah, could easily be. Now it's the time to cash in, right?
Yeah. Why not?
Rook e5. After knight d4, okay, I have to try Rook e5.
Okay.
Because I'm threatening them Bishop e7 check and Rook h5. It's not so simple. To my eyes, this g4 move was a little bit surprising. I saw like King g4, h5, and then King, and then g4, just not to weaken anything. Probably Magnus felt like, okay, I'm completely winning. I don't need to care about these things. But now it is up to him to prove us what he had in mind.
Indeed, yeah.
He does pushes h5.
Also good enough.
Well, so after Rook h8, he might just go back with the king to g5.
And come round.
And then offer, please give me checks, and then King f5. Yes, Rook h8, of course. King g5, King f5, King e4 can also walk in if white keeps checking. So something like King g5, Bishop e7 check, King g6. Yes, sidestepping, inviting a check, then King f5, and then we go in.
Also, is there an option to play Rook e3 here? I know it looks a little strange, but the idea is that... No, he's going to go with the king. He's going to keep total control. The idea of Rook e3 was that if you go b5, I can give a check on e1, a check on d4, and I can then give a check on e2 and take on...
You take every... Yeah, but Magnus wants to be too systematic. Yeah, he doesn't want to change anything. Who knows, maybe after Rook e3 there is a Bishop g3 check, then he has to go King g5, and then this construction is a little bit strange with the Rook on. We talked about we want everything on the light squares against this dark squared Bishop. As long as everything is on the light squares, it's all good. Yeah, Magnus goes back with the king to g5. He might be a little bit upset that, yeah, actually I could have just played King g4, h5. Why I got careless, but it's such a winning position that I think he doesn't mind. And he knows it. I know how I'm going to win this.
Magsudlu is winning still, and it looks as though Lenia Dominguez has broken the fortress of David Navarra. So we could get a Dominguez versus Carlsen last round.
But the colors don't match.
But it doesn't matter by now, I think.
Doesn't matter. But Vincent was the only one who had white.
Oh, maybe.
So maybe because of this.
Maybe. Rook d8.
Rook d8 played.
Okay, King f5, King e4 is just begging to be played here.
Following the light square strategy.
Begging to be played. Even if you give up on h5, you feel as though...
But actually you are not even giving, you can always push h4.
Yeah.
Even this, yeah?
Yeah.
That is a wonderful news for black. The knight on f3 is not only eyeing on h2, but it also supports the pawn. It's a lovely knight. It's a brutal knight. Rook e8. We see that Sindar of Fredericks won a game is already minus 5 point something, and Navarra Dominguez is also completely winning. Well, should we switch or should we stay?
I think we should stay.
We should stay, yes?
Yes, I think
Yeah,
so.
because it's so important. Yeah, if Magnus Carlsen wins, then he wins the tournament already. It's 8 out of 8, and the nearest rivals are with 6.5. So he's 1.5 points ahead. H4. By the way, now already somewhere knight takes H2, followed by G3 is very much in the air.
Yeah. It'll never happen, but yes.
Never say never.
Never say never. Yeah. I think Ralph's going to bring the rook back now to like E2 or something, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, he brings it back so that knight H2 is under control. There's also knight takes H2, by the way. Even here, it sounds counterintuitive after rook E2, and Magnus will not play it. Yeah, first he plays rook D3. Maybe it is a Zugzwang kind of stuff. What moves? Where moves from white? I don't see a move.
Yeah, this
Maybe
is
one dropped out of the tournament, and then Sindarov even went on to knock out Hikaru Nakamura in the quarterfinals. Yeah, by picking him. Yeah, that was one of the craziest moments in Weissenhaus. King B1 played by Mamedov. Where is the king running? Or is it just about this Zugzwang? He doesn't want to be in Zugzwang. He moves the king.
But I think you should give a check here as Magnus.
Rook D1 check. Just please decide where you go, yeah?
Yeah, because if king A2, then I can take on... I can either take on D4 or I can play the move knight D2. But then you have king A3, knight B3, B5.
Yes. You
No.
can't box me and you can't play for a mate. Let's just show them what king on A2 feels also very shaky, but against this construction there is this. And be careful, whenever that B pawn moves with the bishop on D6 and you are unable to play rook B3, that's horrible. Let's see what Magnus will do.
Yeah, he's kind of... I feel like he's made his task more difficult, definitely. I feel like he was... I don't want to use the word lazy with G4, but maybe he relaxed ever so slightly.
Yes.
I wouldn't imagine you playing G4 there, Peter. You would have played king G4 almost certainly.
Well, if I would have relaxed, I could have played G4 as well, yeah? But that's why we always keep on saying that you can never relax as long as your opponent has not resigned. And Magnus picks up the pawn on D4. Knight takes D4 captured. Rook E5 check.
Does he want to just do something like king F6,
King
rook
F6.
takes D5,
Then King E6.
king E6
Wins the piece.
Wins the piece, yeah.
Yeah, so Ralph is unable to...
No, that's...
Yeah, and there
That's
is a
enough,
resignation. Congratulations by Ralph.
Some nice words there exchanged, but no. He had everything just under control. Just enough to not make it disastrous. And with this victory, Magnus Carlsen moves to 8 out of 8 in this incredibly strong tournament. But the result, if we're being brutally honest, was never in doubt for...
Yeah, I think that was a gesture by Magnus, yeah, that after D5, ED, knight, B6, I took over. Yeah, I didn't know what to do for you. Yeah, that was like a crazy sequence of moves. Second move, D5, ED, knight, B6, and suddenly black is better on move 3.
Now, I'm assuming Magnus won't come in. Would be amazing, of course, if he did. But he may just want to rest for the final game. That would be completely acceptable.
And I think it would be the correct approach.
Yes.
Yeah, we know that he wants to get 9 out of 9. He also knows that the other players are fighting for the spot in Las Vegas. He has already beaten 8 players, so he would feel like to do justice for the tournament, I have to beat all my opponents so that nobody can say that I gave a draw for someone. Well, first of all, we know that you can only earn the draw here because there is no rook E1 Berlin or there are no drawish variations. You have to play the game, you have to fight the game.